Hi everyone, Bear from Bear Reads Books. Welcome back to my channel. We're here to do a book review for this afternoon. I hope you're all having a fantastic day, wherever you are. This week I finished a couple of books, so time for back-to-back book reviews. The first being Maya Angelou. Now this is her entire collection of poetry, and on my list of 25 gateway poets to enjoy poetry better, which I've linked to before and I'll link to again, it was mentioned that Maya Angelou's collection of poetry called And Still I Rise was worth reading as one of the 25 gateway poets that everyone should experience. So there was no need for me to read all of this. If I stick strictly to the list that's been set in the reading list, I just need to read one little section of this, the And Still I Rise collection, which ran to about 50 or 60 pages, and in comparison to this is the second collection of poetry from that 25 poet list, compared to the first collection, which was all about boozing and sleeping with people and partying and being alone and lonely. This one is remarkably different. This talks about love, relationships, race, loss. Lots of very, very interesting themes here. I will read one or two. I'm not going to read you the title poem, And Still I Rise. It's a very famous one, but I do really hope you choose to check that one out. But I won't be reading that one. I don't want to spoil the whole book. It's kind of like the whole point of this being here and reading this book, so I don't want to read that one. But I will read one or two. I found them incredibly beautiful poems, completely different in their construction. Kim Adenizio's poems, there was no rhyme. They were just beautifully constructed short sentences, whereas Maya Angelou's seemed to change from rhyming poems to just prose poems, but still equally as powerful, whichever style she chooses to adopt. Now, if you've never experienced Maya Angelou's poetry before, maybe you've come to Maya Angelou through some of her fiction works or short fiction works. However, if you have experienced Maya Angelou before in any form, I suggest you should also check out her poetry, which is usually readily available from any library, which is where I got this, and truly, truly beautiful. Let me find you a short passage and we'll do a quick read. Okay, so this one's called On Aging, and it comes 2/3 of the way through, and the collection's built in, I think, 3 sections. I'll go through the 3 sections and what the differences were between the 3 after I read this little poem. This one's called On Aging. When you see me sitting quietly like a sack left on the shelf, don't think I need your chattering, I'm listening to myself. Hold, stop, don't pity me. Hold, stop your sympathy. Understanding if you've got it, otherwise I'll do without it. When my bones are stiff and aching and my feet won't climb the stair, I will only ask one favour, don't bring me no rocking chair. When you see me walking, stumbling, don't study and get it wrong, 'cause tired don't mean lazy, and every goodbye ain't gone. I'm the same person I was back then, a little less hair, a little less chin, a lot less lungs, and much less wind, but ain't I lucky I can still breathe in. I love it. That one's a really playful one. They're not all like that, but it's just about how people feel about the elderly, and how people feel when I get old. So how I feel about myself getting old, how other people feel when they see or interact with old people. It's really nice. Let me go back to the beginning. So it's built on And Still I Rise, the collection, which I read, it's built on 3 parts. Part 1 was called Touch Me Life Not Softly. Part 2 was called Travelling, and Part 3 was And Still I Rise. And Part 1 was all about lots of hope, very much about hope. So it's almost like a life cycle or a song cycle. You know, if you're Australian and you read any Indigenous works, they talk about song cycles all the time. It's very much like that. It's a whole life laid out in a collection of poetry. So the first part Touch Me Life Not Softly has poems in it like Country Lover, Remembrance, Phenomenal Woman, Men, and it's an explanation of who we are and who you are, and about our relationships. It's really quite powerful and really empowering. Is the first one. Second talks about lots of different things. So they got about things like, the second section is called Travelling, and it has poems in it called things like My Arkansas, which is really a love of a place, and it Ladies Luncheon Club and Mama Welfare Roll. So it talks a lot about love's lost, but also coming to a sense of place and a love of place and being part of something, whether it be a community or a race or a city or a state. It's very, very good. And part 3 is And Still I Rise, which has Still I Rise, the very much well-known poem that forms the crux of this collection, right at the top of that third part. But it does talk about on aging is part of that third part of the collection, and it's about the struggles of life. It's about coming through the other side of those struggles. So, and still I rise is no matter what happens to me, no matter what you say to me, and still I rise. So that's that repeating line in that poem over and over again. So it's about coming through the struggles that might be part of the travelling portion of your life to the third portion where you have risen up and you've become this stronger, better person. And then it talks about aging and how people feel when you age, and there's lots of other stuff in there too. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. Very, very different to Kim Adenizio, but for a whole bunch of different reasons, incredibly enjoyable. And I've never read any other Maya Angelou, which is a shame. I really should have read at least some of her short fiction, you would think, but I have not. So later this year, I keep saying this, I'm going to have to rectify that situation. I'm going to have to read something else from Maya Angelou, and I will endeavour to do that sometime in 2020. So again, let's say 4 stars. Maya Angelou, this book is the complete poetry. The section I read was And Still I Rise, collection of about 50 to 60 pages. Hope you enjoyed that real quick, simple book review, poetry review. Enjoy your day, everyone, wherever you may be, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.